Hey everybody, it's Car Ray Rob. I'm Ray.
I'm Rob.
Today we're giving you our before and after movie review for the Netflix original War Machine.
All right. So I am an unapologetic Brad Pitt fan.
And that's why he's joining us on set today.
I definitely feel like he's had more hits than misses.
Glorious Bastards comes to mind. I love his character. He can play a wide variety of weird characters too.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of feel like we may be getting with War Machine.
I kind of get like a Coen-y brothers type feel to a character here. I think that's going to be really interesting.
I'm getting that kind of Coen dark comedy, maybe a little Charlie Wilson's War. I was hooked from the first time I saw the trailer. A lot of great people in it. Brad Pitt, Tilda Swinton, Anthony Michael Hall, Topher Grace, Ben Kingsley I think is in this. So I mean, there's a lot of really great talent. The score is done by Nick Cave and Warren Ellis.
It's a Netflix original.
Yeah, which is also a really great thing to see them kind of putting out this kind of content. But hopefully it's good, obviously. That's the thing. Can they
We'll
deliver?
have to judge that.
We're going to go check that out right now, and we'll let you know when we get back.
Thoroughly enjoyable movie.
Yeah.
For the most part. A lot to think about and break down, so I'm really looking forward to our conversation here. Let's get into it.
Sure.
Let's talk about the tone of the movie. So this movie is labeled as a dark comedy.
Mm-hmm. I think overall it was a dark comedy. I wouldn't say it went as far as, some of the other ones, I've seen in more recent history, so like a Burn After Reading or like a Death to Smoochie or World's Greatest Dad. It was a little bit more subdued. There is a dark comedic side to War that I think this movie really did a good job of exploring, especially these guys in this kind of no-win situation.
Yeah, I mean, the type of humor a lot of times in this movie felt like it wasn't jokes. Things like, don't kill the people we're trying to save. The delivery and the seriousness behind it comes off as darkly comedic.
Yeah. But I think maybe the most interesting thing is the tonal shift. Maybe about halfway through the movie where it goes from being Charlie Wilson's War to being more like Zero Dark 30. And I think that kind of threw me a little bit.
I don't think either part was executed poorly.
Sure.
I liked them both, and if the first half of the dark comedy was the entire movie, I really probably would have enjoyed it. I think if the second half was the whole movie, I would have thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know how I like the chop up. I don't know if it's poor execution or perfectly executed.
I guess it all depends on if you're assuming if it was purposeful or not.
Like, did they just run out of jokes?
Right, exactly. I'm going to say that they purposely did it.
Always the optimist.
I think they did kind of stumble on a bit of originality. You've got a lot of both types of those movies, especially the serious war movies. So to take that and make it a little bit more comedic, I think even with the comedy, you'd still need that seriousness, at least for a certain amount of time, to kind of ground it a little bit and remind you really what is going on here. For that, I'm going to say it worked.
The movie, I thought when we watched trailers, I thought it was being sold just a dark comedy. So when you don't get that, you think for a second, like, why didn't I get that? And is it an advertising problem, a poor execution second half of the movie problem?
If you guys don't know, we also break down trailers. So, I got more or less what I thought I was going to get. It's just more that one section. So was I misled? Do I feel misled by the trailer? No, I don't think it's a breakdown in marketing. In the grand scheme of the whole film, I think, it kind of still ended on that blackout joke. There's a funny cameo. Don't want to spoil that for when you check it out. I think they brought it home in the end. They knew what they were doing, so they figured, okay, let's give this experiment a go. And I think they pulled it off. I do.
A big problem, I think, with the war scene, like where they went in to take over that town in Afghanistan, and it just felt like it lost the perspective of the movie. I felt like the movie was so much Brad Pitt's character's perspective and journey, and I just felt like it felt out of place to me.
At least in defense of that, I think what they were doing was giving closure to the soldiers from Sasquatch. They kind of started a little bit of an arc with them, a little bit of a story. If you want to look at it this way, that whole operation was Brad Pitt's. It was his brainchild. It was his, it's his failure. So while you lose the perspective of Brad Pitt, it's still all about Brad Pitt.
All right, Rob, so let's get into Brad Pitt's character. I feel like he did a great job of playing this character who isn't just your stereotypical war general. He does a great job, I think, of balancing the strategy of war and also considering the lives of the civilians of the country. And I feel like Brad Pitt brought a lot to that character to be able to play both sides.
They really wrapped up the idea of counterinsurgents into his character, the idea of gaining the trust of the civilians, the townspeople. That's how you beat the insurgency. That first 15 minutes of the movie, the real intro, they did a really great job of setting up his character. And I think by the end of that, you really started to like him even from that. You know, they didn't have to do a lot of work in that department.
They also did a really good job, I think, in those first 15 minutes of introducing the team of characters around him.
Their loyalty, their cross loyalty, is what really made you like Brad Pitt even more. Anthony Michael Hall is really great in this movie. You know, even though it's every time I see him in anything now, I still find it really hard not to just see him in Breakfast Club.
Well, it's so funny to see him go from the door to, in this guy, he's the toughest guy in the room.
But, you know, I think one of the interesting facets of his character is he, in a lot of ways, acts as an internal monologue for McMahon.
Devil on his shoulder.
There's scenes where McMahon is standing there watching something happen. They even frame it where Anthony Michael Hall is kind of looking over his shoulder, you know, arms crossed, like, you know, they don't know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You're really kind of pumping him up, you know. Right. And I feel like it's things that he would be saying to himself if he could, but he's too stoic. Topher Grace was a little wasted. You kind of almost forget he's in the movie sometimes. Yeah. And the other guys are, you know, they're funny, but I wouldn't say you know, remember their names or anything like that. But, you know, they all, in the end, like I said, prop up Brad Pitt, and in that respect they were successful. But, you know, even with the likability, there are a lot of people accused him of hubris. You know, as far as him, you know, being a military man, following orders, that type of thing. He was put in Afghanistan, in his mind, to win.
A lot of other people's minds, it wasn't his purpose for being there.
Exactly. You can't win. You're here to clean up the mess. He couldn't stand for that, so he's decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn this around. Nobody's won this because they weren't going to do it the way I did it. But did it work out for him? Nah.
I think that's the debate of his character. They did a good job, I think, in the movie too, of showing him start to develop this anti-counterinsurgency mindset as well. I feel like it started to trickle in. And, you know, that's kind of where I was going to get to with the Sasquatch crew a little bit. I feel like they were introduced early in the movie to challenge his perspective, where they were asking him questions that he didn't necessarily have answers to.
I mean, I think they gave at least a little bit of an idea of where he landed on the whole counterinsurgency idea. After the failed raid, he sees some soldiers exiting out, and he's like, go get them, kill them, blah blah blah. That was kind of the opposite attitude that he had. For him to all of a sudden be like that, I think he succumbed to the insurgency and kind of became an insurgent himself. That one line was really telling of where that character was and can probably continue to go.
His downfall is with this Rolling Stone article writer being there, and the questions why Brad Pitt's character, General McMahon, allowed him to be there, allowed his guys to be so laxed in front of him. I think in a way it kind of hints that maybe he was doing this on purpose. Maybe he'd had enough and he was trying to find a way out.
What it really says is that he's a layered character, way more layered than what you probably would have thought even from the trailers. And Brad Pitt was the man for the job. There's a lot of scenes throughout the movie that really kind of said that. I think one was the scene at dinner. He barely said a word in that entire scene. Knocked it out of the park. I mean, she was great too, talking about the number of days they've been together each year, and she didn't want him to think that she wasn't proud of him, but then she went as far as saying, well, I'm proud of me too. I'm proud of me too.
I feel that's one of those things that shows you the shift in tone of the movie there. Yeah. Even though she apologizes and she says, I was proud of you too, I'm saying I was proud of you, he's not buying it completely. That's why he can't put to words whatever he wants to say or he's thinking. He just sits there and mulls it over and tries to be calm and tries to be like this guy he's portraying himself to be, but you can also see there's that inside wants to probably say kill, kill, kill. Another one of those powerful scenes when we finally get to see Tilda Swinton.
I think she really had a real declarative thesis statement of the McMahon character. I don't think you're a bad guy. Nobody here thinks you're a bad guy. Where does it end? Like
almost speaking on behalf of the audience too at that point.
Right, exactly. So I thought in that she, in a big way, was a hinge of the movie.
I think even as an audience member, you really she puts to words, but maybe you're not ready to at that moment. All right, Rob. So this is a dark comedy war movie. Let's think of it as a whole, as such. Did the movie work as a war movie?
I guess it all depends on what you're looking for from a war movie. If you're looking for epic battle sequences, then no. It didn't really add much, even into the canon of war movies. But I don't think that necessarily says that it didn't work as a war movie. I do feel like the dark comedic aspects of a war movie were something that we haven't seen much of in film history.
Dr. Strangelove.
That's the pinnacle right there.
I mean, I like the fact that this was a behind-the-scenes war movie. That's why, my gripe with the movie is I wish it stayed there more. Just did that because I think that was more unique way to look at war. I also feel like this is an anti-counterinsurgency movie disguised as a war movie.
Right.
I definitely think it goes into that topic more than you've seen a lot of before.
I do think, some people may take that as some sort of a dig on the military and their tactics in the Middle East. Sometimes things are, the realistic portrayal. So McMahon, he, sees himself as the good guy going in and cleaning up the mess. The bureaucratic people that are kind of seen as the bad guys, well, they're right.
Right. The guys who are portrayed as the bad guys the entire movie are the ones who are actually speaking the most truth. Right. It's not what you as an audience member want to hear because you kind of want McMahon to win early on.
Sure. Because of that, it almost negates the whole notion of a good guy, bad guy in this scenario.
I think they did a really good job here, but portraying, I think, people close to fairly. I would say there's a writer of this movie who has maybe not a huge agenda, but he has a bit of one. Everybody does, right?
Yeah.
You can't not have a viewpoint on something. He does a very good job, I think, of portraying soldiers as not just being dumb soldiers, or all about killing people, right? When he was questioned, like, not knowing who he should shoot, due to his own, he wants to be safe, not because he wants to kill people. Kind of feel like it does work in that way because it feels fair.
I think it kind of lies in that gray area, which is perfect because that's exactly where dark comedies belong. Final thoughts.
I love being able to talk about it because I do think this movie does a great job of there being something to the story to talk about. That makes a movie a lot more fun than a lot of things that we've had to talk about the last couple of weeks. I thought there were some great comedy scenes. I think there's some great character acting. I definitely want people to see it. I think it's going to be enjoyable for you, maybe a little educational. And then you're just going to get to see some really good actors do a great job at doing their job.
I thought it was successful. I thought, Brad Pitt was fantastic. For the dark comedic times, it was really funny. Did have a strong message, a good message, and one that I think more people than what you might think would be able to get on board with and really cling on to, because I think there are some universal themes in this movie. Anybody that would sit down and spend the 2 hours to watch this movie wouldn't feel like it was time wasted at all. All right, everybody, that's it for us. But we want to know what you think about War Machine. Was Brad Pitt memorable? Did the tone of the movie work? We want to know about it in the comments below.
Then hit the like and subscribe button so you can catch our next video.
Until then, this is Car Ray Rob.
I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. This I guarantee. That fucking Randolph has seen his last rainbow. We're gonna find him, cut off his balls, and shove him up his ass.
Well, maybe we should leave that for the cops, Tommy.
Cops don't do the ball thing. It's against procedure.